Hello and welcome to the Shaping Futures podcast. I'm Kritika Bagaria, a mentor to high school students to guide them onto a path of purpose and passion with the larger goal of helping them get into world-class colleges abroad and in India. Through the medium of this podcast, we interview experts in the field of education and change makers to inspire students to take action and an active charge of their career goals. Today, we have with us Vedika Tibrewal, who's a serial entrepreneur, a really creative soul. And Vedika, we're so happy to have you here with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here. Looking forward to this conversation with you.
I know, me too. So, I'm going to dive right in and ask you about Skoopski, your cookie dough brand. You went to Harvard Summer School and came back with Skoopski. We would love to know the story of that, please.
Right, so you hit the brief spot on. I did go to Harvard Summer School, and during my short vacation there in New York, which was like a weekend vacation, I came across the concept of cookie dough. And I waited outside this one small, tiny, quaint cookie dough parlor in New York for 2 hours just to get my hands on the product. And while it seems quite basic, it's cookie dough. It was something I had never tasted before, never even thought of tasting before. And then like once I had my hands on those products, I mean, all the flavors, there were around like 15 to 18 flavors of the same product. And after having that, it just blew my mind. And once I came back to India, I just couldn't stop thinking about it and couldn't stop thinking about the fact that something so simple but so decadent is not there in India, where we consider ourselves sort of like the supreme land of sweets.
Yeah,
right? And we didn't have that. But at the same time, we did resonate with the taste because we've grown up eating halwa and the consistency of dessert of that kind. But we didn't have that at that point. So then it just struck me that, there's nothing like this in India. I'm sure it's going to resonate with the taste palates of Indians. So why not try experimenting with the product? And I was a major foodie, still am extremely big on food, but I never considered myself to be like a chef or anyone who could like really create food.
Sure.
My idea was to just ideate food, look for food, hunt for food, and talk about food, not really create it. So then I took help from like a few cousins who were into the baking industry and they were professional bakers, and a little bit of research here and there, spoke to a lot of people, and then this was a kitchen experiment that turned out to be a fruitful product.
Wow.
And then with a lot of experimentation and trial runs, we hit the sweet spot. And that's when
quite literally.
And that's when we decided to give out tasters to friends and family, get views, get feedback, and then coin the term Skoopski and start the business.
Lovely. This sounds incredible, Vedika, but throughout your, story, I kept wondering that, well, you identified a product that was missing in India. You also identified the fact that this could potentially work with Indians' taste palette. But from there to the point of executing it and turning it into a brand, well, how did you figure out those skills, or how do you feel looking back? When and how did you kind of develop all those skills, that kind of creative thinking, that problem solving approach, which helped you put together a thought into a product out there? Do you feel your high school experiences, your college experiences added to this? If yes, then how? We would love to know about that.
So I've always been a creative thinker, if I must say. I've always considered myself to think of things in a way that it sort of breaks the status quo.
Right.
And when I was thinking of a brand around Skoopski, I didn't want it to be a brand that is intimidating. I didn't want it to be a brand that seems classy, that you can't get your hands on. I wanted it to be friendly. I wanted it to be your next door neighbor kind of a brand.
Right.
And because the product was so new and it wasn't something that one had heard of before, I needed the branding to be extremely friendly. Right. So that you could at least have a conversation with the brand. And that was the idea behind it. And I also consider myself a branding junkie. I love reading about consumer brands and consumer behavior and just how we interact with our surroundings. That's one of my passionate topics. Right. So I had sort of grown up reading about those topics, and that was sort of ingrained in my system while I was thinking about Skoopski. Never in my wildest thought did I think that, I would be creating a food brand. Wow. But then it just happened. And all the readings that I've done in the past, all my passion projects while I was in school, while I was in college as well. I was very active in business plan competitions, business fest, etc. So these kind of events instill in you a lot of soft skills that you otherwise wouldn't get.
Yes.
And that, I mean, multiple rounds of testing in business fest, etc., that really got me to open up my horizons when it comes to branding. The different possibilities of what can happen, the different case studies that you study, and then that really helps you pinpoint on what you want, really, what you stand for, what your brand stands for. So I wouldn't say it was any particular day or particular piece of content that really got me to build Skoopski. It was just like a year of, I mean, years and years of practice and reading that got me there. But then I had a very clear vision of what I wanted Skoopski to convey as a brand voice. And that really helped me build the entire brand image when it comes to logo, to colors, to any kind of brand communication. That sort of just like came together very well because I understood what the brand voice is.
Absolutely. And, we love the brand, and I'm, going to ask you many more questions about the marketing and the branding concept of Skoopski, but I still want to dig deeper, right? I want you to tell us about a little more about those passion projects in school, or, those business fests that, or, those readings, that you were doing at home, not knowing that 5-10 years later, you would have a brand of your own, tell us more about how our students who are currently in school can inculcate these habits or find an area that they're passionate about and go deeper while not knowing yet what that might culminate into. I just want to know a little more about that phase of your life.
Right. So I'd say I remember my memory spans back to when I was in class 6, not before that.
Oh, wow.
So I'll probably
you remember class 6 also? I'm really surprised.
I do, because those were a few of the shaping years of my life, because that's when middle school really starts. Before that, just like, primary. Middle school really starts from 6. So 6 to 8 is sort of like the most important years of a student, if I recall. That was really, really important to shape my identity as of now. So the one major advice that I have for students, and the one which I tried to personally inculcate also, was not get embarrassed very easily. Because that is one thing that students now, at least now when the age of comparison has really blown up. You're comparing yourself in every single way possible. Your looks, your marks, your eating habits, your skills, everything you're comparing, or you are being compared at every juncture.
And magnified, and how with social media.
Exactly. With social media. So their social media really becomes a bane. It is not a boon in any way when it comes to comparison. So that way, it's very, very easy to feel embarrassed with the smallest of things. Even if you identify yourself as an extrovert or as a really confident person, deep down you are embarrassed of something or the other. So my advice is that keep that embarrassment threshold very, very high. So that you are not scared of experimenting with anything. And once you're not scared of experimenting or participating or putting yourself out there, there's literally no stopping you. So when I was in class 6, that's when my participation in fests and talking to people and having multiple conversations started. And had I been embarrassed back then by thinking, what would people think of me? Would I come across as stupid? Would I come across as too out there? I would just not do anything. And I did find myself at that point at one point of time. Okay, am I trying to be too much out there? Am I being judged a lot? So that thought was there for a fleeting moment, but then it went away as quickly. So that is something that
because you kept at it and grew out of that thought.
Exactly.
In your own head.
So at that point, validation is also very, very important. Some sort of validation, and I feel you can have a close circle to bank on that validation for. That if you are doing something good, your close circle will tell you, okay, fine, you're doing good. If you're doing something bad, they will be the ones to sort of vet you for it. But don't base your validation amongst people who don't really know you or you don't really interact with. So have a very, very strong core group, and don't be afraid of doing anything. Once you're not afraid of doing anything, then just put yourself in as many uncomfortable situations as possible.
I love that. Vedika, generally at the end of every episode, I take out that hero line, which I feel summarizes the talk, or would be the most valuable feedback for students or thought for students. I feel like I already got that hero line and we've just about started. So I mean, this is brilliant, and I think what you said about the core group also really resonates with me, because sometimes when you're feeling like you are judging yourself too much and you hear someone else tell you, no, you're doing great. In fact, it's inspiring me. I think that definitely makes a huge, huge, huge difference. So yeah,
Right.
absolutely
That's
bang
very
on.
important. I'm very, very bullish on that fact because I mean it's very easy to judge someone, but if you're judging a person, you're either afraid of them or you want to be them. It's
Yes,
only one of those two things.
yes, yes,
And if you are
absolutely.
being judged, you are probably on your way of becoming someone. So
Absolutely.
that's
That's
good.
something that my father also tells me. So I'm going to tell him after this chat that, we spoke about the same thing. Cool. So I think this is great advice. And I really hope students who are listening to us, kind of feel that, okay, they can go out there, try things. And it's okay if they also make a mistake and get embarrassed, they'll grow out of
Right.
it and be thankful for that someday. Yeah. So now, again, coming back to the point of branding and, your Skoopski brand, the brand voice, the brand essence. I mean, we love the page. I am hooked onto your page. You guys do such interesting, put out such interesting, content, and I feel moved beyond just being a food brand. It talks to us in many, many different ways. I want to understand, how do you keep up with marketing trends, and what are some of those things which you don't while thinking about your brand?
So our vision with the brand is basically to spread joy. Now, spread joy in any way possible, and that's something that we try to put into every single element of our being.
All
Now,
right.
just look at our logo. Our logo has a smile underneath it. So, that we call that the Skoopski smile. And that's there for a reason because we want the brand to be so joyous that once you're having the product or you're looking at the brand communication, you forget about all your other worries.
Sure.
For a minute second, even if that's possible. I mean, we want to sort of propagate that.
Sure.
And we don't just want to be a dessert brand, we just want to be a happy brand.
Yes.
And we just try to keep that vision forward with any kind of communication that we put out, and most of the times it's dessert related or food related, but otherwise when we are trying to see the bandwidth of our communication, we also try to understand if it's falling under the same brand language or not. So if
Right.
you're talking to say a person who's single, like today our post will go out which talks about a single life and a committed life,
All
but
right.
it's also talking to our sort of viewers and our customers in a way that they resonate with that in the context of desserts also. So we
Yes.
try to be relatable, but at the same time we try to be relevant with the
Yes.
brand.
Yes.
And we also make sure that we hit the right target market when it comes to demographics.
Hmm.
So if you're talking to someone, if we're talking on Mother's Day, for example,
Yeah.
we will try and talk to all kinds of mothers, not just mothers who have given birth to babies.
Yeah.
So we spoke about dog moms, plant moms. We spoke about, just like moms in every sphere of the term.
Yeah.
And that is how we try to make it relatable. We try to think outside of the box and see what all elements come into the same spectrum.
Sure. So how would you again push students to kind
Mhm.
of think about it like this? And I mean, think about things like this, because a lot of our students today are also entrepreneurs, right? They are running
Mhm.
their own initiatives, or they have their own product or service that they're putting out there. And again, one of the things that I always see them kind of now struggling with would be marketing, would be
Mhm.
keeping up with marketing trends. So again, what would be some points of advice for them to be better at this
Mhm.
game?
So I have two tricks here. What we do at Skoopski at least is we have a group on at least Instagram
Yeah.
as a team where we keep on posting anything that inspires us, anything that we find interesting. That might not be anything related to the food industry, nothing related to marketing, anything at all that caught your eye while you were randomly scrolling on Instagram. We
Right.
just keep forwarding those posts to that group so that you have a repository of everything interesting that you can find so that you can take inspiration later.
Right.
So keep on. So don't make sure that your scrolling time on Instagram is not wasted,
Yes.
because that time will be there. You will spend hours and hours scrolling on Instagram on a daily basis. So make
Yeah.
sure at least some productivity comes out of it.
Sure.
I'm not asking you to
Absolutely.
stop it, but because that is something that we have sort of been like trained to do now
Yeah.
by default.
Yeah.
So try make most of that while you can.
Again, some
And
very
the other,
smart marketers have gotten us into this habit of, mindless scrolling. Yeah, completely agree with you.
exactly.
Yeah.
So while you are at it, at least get something out of it.
Sure.
You know, so that's what we keep doing on a daily basis. We share at least 10 to 15 posts on that group, and everybody from the team does. So everybody's part
Lovely.
of that group, and we keep sharing that. And that is one sort of basic hack that we found. And the other one is that there's this technique or tool called assumption busting.
All right.
Now, by assumption busting, what we mean is think about a product or a service or any marketing campaign and think of the ways in which that would be perceived,
Right.
and note those assumptions down, because those are assumptions after all. You are
Yeah.
thinking of that product or a service in a particular way because you have been trained to think in that particular way.
Sure.
So write down those assumptions and then try and bust each and every one of them.
Nice.
So I'll just give you an example there. For example, if you are supposed to think of a wallet,
All right.
and if you are supposed to think of the ways in which a wallet can work, you'll
Yeah.
probably first think that you need to put in cash, you need to put in cards, you need to put in your identity card, for example. That thing needs to be portable, that thing needs to be small so that you can fit
Right.
into your pocket. But then a wallet can be a lot more things. A wallet can be a digital card on your phone. A wallet can be
Right.
anything that shows your social status. It can be anything. It can be
Right.
so much more. So, you
Right.
just think of the functional ways in which a wallet can be used and try busting each and every one of them. And that's a very,
Nice.
very small example of assumption
Yeah.
busting.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's how also you break the mundane, right? And do things differently. Yeah, I really, really like that. And again, I would definitely use that and, speak to more students about it. So this was great advice, Vedika. Also, you are, like I said, a serial entrepreneur. You're not just the founder of your brand. You also have a passion project and you're still studying, right? So again, what would you say to students who want to start early while they're still studying? How do you cope with time? How do you manage your priorities?
So when I was back in school, what I wanted to, of course, I wanted to have a startup because startup was the cool thing to do back then.
Yeah,
And
still is.
still is, of course. No, but back then it was like, start earning money as soon as you can, or at least build something out there which people know about.
Right.
So that was one thing even I wanted to do back in school. I started off right after college, but then the idea was always there.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, if I look at it, what I should have focused on was building soft skills, because once you have a good stronghold of your skills, you can build anything that you want at any point.
Yeah.
And that time that you get to build your soft skills doesn't come very fast, doesn't come very easily to you in your life. And
Yeah.
school and college time is when you can actually build on those things and you can become indispensable to your startup after a while.
Sure.
So I'd say build soft skills in a way that nobody can out compete you on that.
Absolutely.
And just like have a core competency. If you have a core competency which you really, really enjoy and are passionate about, then you will easily build a brand or a business or anything that can fetch you tons and tons of money out there.
Yes.
But that core competency is very, very important.
Yeah.
Like
and also
now
to be
I'm
able to then
realizing
identify that core competency that I
exactly
am damn good at this,
right. And then if you
Yeah.
identify that in school, and
Yeah.
if you see maybe relatives or friends coming to you for help on that particular topic, then you know you're getting there, and maybe then start researching and digging deep more into that core competency. And if you find that, then probably go ahead and build something out there, because that is something that'll keep on growing you as a person as well. But don't just start up for the sake of starting up, or sort of running a rat race with whatever's going on, or just for earning money early. Don't do that. Try building a core competency which can really, really double or triple X your growth in the future.
Sure. Lovely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And, on that note, I think it's really interesting timing, with the question that I have in mind, which is, you are working on a passion project, Dine with Data. And I'm very curious to understand how this project of yours is adding value to you as an entrepreneur. Could you speak to us about that?
Definitely. So Dine Data started off as a passion project for sure. It started off last year in January. That was because this was sort of like a personal development project that I wanted to do. I wanted to read about one company every single day as a New Year's resolution, because that has a magic on its own, right? The New Year's resolution. That's something that sort of stops you from breaking it till a while.
Sure.
And I sort of understood that if I keep this resolution just to myself, I won't be doing it probably after a month or 2 months.
Right.
So I
Right.
needed social accountability for it.
Right.
And that's why I put it out on my network saying that I am doing this. Do you want to hop on board with the same thing or not? Because I'll be researching on it on a daily basis. Do you
Yeah.
want to get the same information or not? And a lot of people were into it. So I had around 200, 250 people join the groups that I was in, just
Yes.
so that they could get the information that I was researching on. And then slowly and steadily, I understood that a lot more people want to get their hands on the research that I'm doing. So
Yeah.
then Arman and I got together sometime in June last year, and then we started Dine with Data, which is a WhatsApp newsletter. Now
Yeah.
that has had like multifold, I think, benefits for me and Arman, because like we have had such incredible conversations with people, and conversations I think are the most powerful tools of today's generation. I mean,
Yes.
you can
We are in the
have
middle of a conversation,
exactly,
Vedika.
and I'm so glad about this because this we won't even know how many people it might impact. You're recording this today, maybe 5 years down the line, if somebody is listening to it, that person might be impacted in ways we can't even imagine.
Sure.
So conversation is something I'm really, really bullish on. Even if it's a 5 minute conversation, if it's a 15 minute or 20 minutes or 2 hour conversation,
Yeah.
everyone has something to offer which you don't have already.
Right.
No matter which start of society or which age group they belong to.
Right.
And that is something Diamond has really fostered us to have. We've had conversations with multiple founders, investors, people who are just beneficiaries of Diamond Data, stakeholders of Diamond Data. It's incredible to have those conversations with them and just to see people get sheer benefit out of our passion
Sure.
and foster connections between people, guide them in a particular way, just be benefactors in a lot more relationships than just us and our readers. So
Absolutely.
that has really, really impacted me as a person and my growth with Skoopski as well. So I highly recommend people having a side project along with whatever they do on a daily basis for
Yes.
their income. And I really feel if you are very, very passionate about that, and if you wake up wanting to do that every day, it'll go a very, very long way.
Absolutely. And, we don't even know what Dine with Data tomorrow, might become, and, all of that. And that's, I think, the whole beauty of it and the whole excitement of it. And, Vedika, this has been thoroughly, thoroughly inspiring. I'm sure it will be to our students and listeners as well. So before we wrap up, any words of advice to young students in school? Just, some thoughts that you would like to share. I'm sure, you have young consumers consuming your brand. You probably speak to them, so any valuable piece of advice that you would like to leave our students with?
Definitely. So, I mean, I think I've been on a rant of giving advice in the past 30 minutes, but I'd like to close off by saying that just don't be scared of doing anything while you're in school. Don't be afraid. Don't be, like I said, don't be embarrassed, and don't be too conscious of yourself because you have your entire life left to do that.
Right.
Right now, if you have 20 pairs of eyes on you, maybe when you're 20, 30, you'll have 100 pairs of eyes on you, what you're doing.
Right.
And at that point, if you keep this sort of fear in you that people are judging me, people are being very skeptical of what I'm doing, then that'll probably cripple you after a point.
Right.
And you don't want that.
Right.
And that's something you have to build while you're in school. And that's extremely, extremely important. In fact, I'd say go and have a few embarrassing moments of yourself. Very important. I personally embarrassed myself on the stage of Don Bosco School. So I was part of this band and we performed terribly, like terribly. We were booed off stage.
Oh my
We performed
God.
terribly. I ran home crying. The next day I was back in that school with
Yeah.
eyes on me. People thinking that, oh my God, this person performed so terribly on stage. But then the next day when I went back, all my inhibitions were gone because people judged me for an hour. But after that, they just knew I was there and the judgment was gone.
Yeah.
So probably
And then she's here to stay.
Exactly. So after that, it's just a momentary discomfort that you'll feel. But after that, the victories are endless. So just
Lovely.
don't be afraid of anything.
Yeah. And, Vedika, again, I knew this was going to be our, kind of close up session, close off moment. But I mean, I just got reminded of the fact that you're doing a really unique master's program, right? Which I would like you to speak about. And also because right now when I'm speaking to students who are in school, they're sometimes trying to plan what is it that they're going to do for their masters. And I always tell them, do we even know whether you're going to be happy with this undergrad program that you're choosing? It might result into you discovering something completely new about yourself, right? So back in school, did you ever know that what you wanted to do for your masters? How did you discover this passion? Just a little bit about that, please.
So being very honest, back in school, for graduation, it was sort of said that I'll be studying in Calcutta itself.
Yeah.
But back in school itself, I had a deal with my dad saying that he will be sending me out for masters or postgrad wherever I wanted to and whichever course I wanted to. So back in school itself, I decided, okay, masters means going out.
Yeah.
So I had that mindset back then. But then that slowly changed while I was in college, thinking that, do I want to really do a master's for the sake of doing masters, or do I want to get benefits out of that?
Yes.
And because you don't do 2-3 masters in life, you probably do one, maybe two if you are lucky, but then that's it. So you either want to make the most out of that, or just do it for the sake of doing as a degree in your CV.
Yes.
And the degree in my CV never really mattered. Like now also, if I don't get my degree, it won't really matter to me because I've already gotten the education.
Yeah.
So there are two reasons why one should go for masters. Number one is networking. Networking, if you can go to a big business school, great, because the networking opportunities are amazing there.
Yes.
And master's networking is some kind of networking that you'll never find in your life.
Right.
And number two is that college is offering you something that no other college will. Or the uni is offering you something that no other will, which was in my case. So Skoopski is one of the top management schools in Europe and one of the top in the world as well. But the course that I went for is the only course Skoopski is one of the only universities that offers that course in the world.
Yes.
And that's food and beverage management. That's not anything to do with the culinary arts.
Yes.
So that was right up my alley. That was in the industry that I wanted to sort of grow in. And it was in Italy. It's the food lovers' paradise.
Yeah.
And it was one of the top management schools in the world. So it ticked all boxes for me. But then I was very, very particular about the fact that it offered something to me that no other university will. Otherwise, had my GMAT grades allowed me, I would have probably gone for a much, much better university for a basic management course.
Right.
For example, like a Harvard, Stanford, whatever, if that was possible, but that wasn't. So I then decided that my core competency is something I want to improve on.
Yes.
Rather than focus on that kind of networking, which is why I went for Skoopski.
Yes.
But going outside just for the sake of going and having 1 year abroad doesn't really make sense in the long run.
And you can't predict what is it that you would want to specialize in also, right? Like you found your reasons for doing your masters along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd say take your time, figure out what you really want to excel in, and then only go for masters. I mean, if you have sorted that in your head by the time you're done with your university, great. By the time you're done with your graduation, great. Otherwise, take a year off and at least think. And what do you really want to study? Because masters is studying. It's hardcore studying. It is not easy. It is not just all play no work.
Right.
It is hardcore work.
Right.
So it really matters which field of masters that you are going for. So be very, very sure of that topic before going.
Perfect, Vedika. This has been incredibly useful. I have learned so much speaking to you, and I really, really hope that, more and more students and parents also get access to this conversation. Thank you once again for your time, and it was just so lovely having you with us.
Thank you, Kritika. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I hope a lot more students get to see this, get to hear this, and I would love to hear their feedback whenever I can.
Perfect. Done. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.